Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share on the show? Love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. This is BJ Odom. You know, the guy with more parts than a chicken nugget. It's my new memoir, packed with laughs, heart, and unbelievable true story of survival that you've heard me talk about right here on the Gift of Life podcast. Get your copy today, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, available on Amazon, as we welcome you to episode 94. In today's episode, we meet a remarkable man, Bill Barschaw. What started out as a routine doctor visit in 1990 became a life-saving diagnosis. After years of medication and uncertainty, Bill received the ultimate gift, a new heart, 35 years ago. His story stands as a powerful reminder of hope, struggles, and the miracle of organ donation. We'll meet Bill coming up next. Hey, Bill, glad to have you on the program today. If you would, just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, should I start here and go backwards or start a long time ago and go forward?
I will let that be up to you.
Okay. Let me start years ago. And basically, I consider Spokane, Washington, my hometown. I was born in Wisconsin, but pretty much grew up in Spokane. My stepfather was in the Navy, and in my freshman year in high school, he came home one day and he said, "They're closing the base out there and we're going to move to Houston." Woohoo! And so I moved to Houston. A year later, they said they're closing the base again and we're going to move to Dallas. So in 4 years of high school, I went to 3 different high schools. I joined the Navy because he was in the Navy, as in the Navy Reserve, my junior year in high school. And in the middle of my sophomore year, I got called to active duty. I had a choice: sign up for another, I think it was 4 years, or go on active duty. And I chose to go on active duty. So in early 62, in January of 62, I went on active duty in Southern California for 3 years. And then I started bouncing around again on active duty almost to the end of my 3 years on active duty. I got married the first time, and we moved back up here to Washington State. So I have been living in the Northwest here again since the mid-'60s, and really, really like it. So that's my moving career. I also didn't finish college when I got called to active duty, but as it turns out, several of my beginning jobs gave me a PhD in the real world, and I've used that ever since. I retired from in 2004. What is there about that? I've been out here in Central Washington since 2004. The biggest part of that is that was 4 years after my heart transplant, and I was living out here on the property in a trailer, building a house that we're presently in now, and love this area. And don't know when or what we're going to do beyond this. It's just comfortable. It's nice. Well, except for the 20 and 30 degree weather at this time of the year, it's pretty comfortable and nice around here. Short end of 60 plus years.
Well, it sounds good to me. I tell you what, Army people, military people sound a lot like radio people. We bounce a lot around.
Yes. I want to tell you, I got your book yesterday at midday, and I spent almost all afternoon reading it, and there was a great deal of similarities with your job career into Florida and stuff like that. That's very similar to some of my career, bouncing from job to job and moving around to accommodate the work too. So yes.
Well, we are here today because this is all about organ transplantation, and you are, like me, a heart recipient, and every story has a beginning, and thank God yours and mine does not really have an ending yet. But let's start from the beginning of your heart transplant journey. How did it all begin, and tell me about it?
Okay, well, yes, I thought about that yesterday in reading your book and knowing that this was coming and everything. Somewhere at the very beginning of 1990, my GP doctor went in for kind of an annual, and my GP doctor said, "I'm going to have you go see this other doctor because listening to your heart, I can't honestly remember what he said, but I remember very clearly that the GP, general practitioner, said that I needed to see a cardiologist, although he may have said that word at that time." So I said, okay. And it was set up and scheduled. I went in to see him, and he did preliminary listening and stuff like that. And he said, "I'm going to schedule you for," and I don't remember exactly what he called it, but it pretty much amounted to a right side heart
catheterization, right?
Heart cath, pretty much, yes. He explained at the beginning that they were going to go in through an artery in the groin area. You remember those?
Oh, yeah. I get them yearly now.
Okay. And so I didn't know what was happening with that. I went into the local hospital fairly close, and this is in the Seattle area, north and northeast, a little bit out of this downtown Seattle area. The thing I remember most about that is the requirement of, after the artery puncture, of having to lay on my back in the hospital with kind of a padded brick on the inside of my right leg for 6 hours to let that heal up. And this, again, is in the beginning of 1990. Within a week or two after that, I had the follow-up appointment at the doctor. We sat down in his office there, and what I was told was that I had idiopathic viral cardiomyopathy. That went right over the top of my head, like I have no idea what the hell that means. And I couldn't figure out what it was or this. And then he began to explain it, that the heart was had a virus attack. They don't know what it was. That's why it's idiopathic. And it was causing the heart to not pump out the full amount of blood that it was supposed to. And at that point, I learned that with every heartbeat you have, it pumps out 50% of the blood that's in the heart. And that 50% is, I don't remember the exact name for it, but he told me my heart was pumping out between 5 and 8% of the blood. It was very, very weak. And I remember saying, well, what can I do? What do I need to do to make my heart stronger so that it pumps it out better? And he said, there is nothing that you can do that improves your heartbeat. He said, a athlete and a couch potato's heartbeat work exactly the same. The athlete has a better artery system, blood flow system in his body that gives him better muscles on the legs and arms and chest and stuff like that than a couch potato, but you can't improve it. He said, you will be lucky to live a year without a heart transplant.
Now I'm going to stop you there and ask you a very important question. So when you first heard the word transplant, what was going through your mind?
At this point of it being 35 years ago, I honestly don't remember. I know it scared me to no end, but I don't remember at that point exactly what went through my mind. I was more interested in making the heart better than I was thinking about a transplant. And
that's a fair answer also.
Yes, I can't honestly tell you. I just thought that it would be better. And that's why I felt so weak. And that's probably one of the things that the GP doctor in our conversation, I told him walking up a flight of steps is extremely difficult. I said I went to the grocery store and carried a couple bags of groceries and I got wore out. What's going on? And that part of it is probably what he determined and decided that I needed to see a cardiologist. So after that, I got the usual batch of beginning pills and everything. And there was a lot of in and outs and everything like that. But the other part of this that is extremely important and effective is that in the early 90s, I was separated and had the potential of having a divorce was in my future. And that was extremely disturbing because my now ex-wife and I were living separated and we'd have to go together to the doctor's office and everything. And so from 1990 through to almost the end of 94, I was having marital troubles that didn't help my state of mind and everything that was going on. But I improved with the medications. I had blood thinner, and I can't think of all the different ones if I'm still on them or anything like that. But I got along okay. I wasn't living, 8 hours a day in a bed or anything like that because I couldn't do anything. I still stayed at work. I was working all the time. And then, lo and behold, I asked this girl at work in the fall of 1994 if she would go down to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas with me. I said, I've got a friend down there. I've got separate living quarters for us, but I want to go see the National Finals Rodeo. It was a bucket list thing for me at the time. And by that time, my divorce was done. And I said, every one of my guy friends is married, and they don't care about rodeos and horses and stuff like that. And I knew she did. And so we went down there to the National Finals Rodeo, and then a month and 2 months later, my rodeo buddy asked me to marry her. Can you believe that?
Did you get married on a horse?
No, but she made arrangements with friends of hers who I knew nothing about, and said to her mom and dad, we're going to meet at her house and take me to this stable. And I said, why do I want to go to a stable on Friday night, in the first February, cold, crappy weather and everything like that? And they said, trust us. So we go, and I got introduced to the guy that owned the property and the stuff like that. And I'm standing in a stable with her mom and dad, and out of one of the stalls, she comes riding a horse, rides around the arena, and got off the horse and asked me if I would marry her. And you've been talking to her off and on now for a couple times when you phone in. That's how we got started. And she was such a brilliant lady that despite the fact that she knew I needed a heart transplant and had absolutely no idea what the future was going to be, she still asked me to marry her. Can you believe that?
Sounds like a very brave woman in love, because caretakers are probably one of the most important aspects of any transplant. And when you just find somebody ready to jump in, you've hit a gold mine out there. That's what I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, more than likely, is also one of the main causes, main reasons in that I've survived all that and all this long and everything. I didn't see in your book when your transplant was. Mine was in, you know the date just like you know your birth date. My second birthday is September 12th, 2000. So the doctor that predicted I wouldn't live a year without a transplant, I proved him wrong by 9 years, 10 years. And then the other doctor story that I think is kind of funny, after the transplant, a week or so afterwards, the cardiologist at the University of Washington, where the transplant was performed, and who I had been with for the 5 years prior to the transplant, because my first cardiologist was not associated with the University of Washington, and he recommended that I go to the cardiology department at the U and got my doctor at that point was Dr. Dan Fishbein, and I knew him since the early and mid 90s up through into just the last couple of years. So we've known each other. I knew him before he even had kids. So I've even heard kids' stories about him. Knew my cardiologist for 30 years. And he came to see me a couple weeks after the transplant and to give me some post-transplant information about what to expect in the next few weeks, next couple months, et cetera, et cetera. You've been there, you know that's coming, and what they're gonna tell you and everything. And he said that more than likely, they're within a few weeks to a month or a couple months afterwards, he thought I would have the effects of some rejection. And this is what we will do if that happens and everything. And I had the audacity laying there in the bed, not even, 14 days out of my transplants. I'm not going to have any rejection. He says, well, in case you do, the funny part about it is that I never did.
That's awesome.
I had, because he was telling me what to be prepared for if that happened and what they would be doing. And this is not uncommon and you don't have anything to worry about and stuff like that. And I did remind him of that probably 10 years out. You remember that day in the hospital, and I said I wouldn't, and I didn't. And so the last few years when I've gone in to see him, he retired a year ago, so we went to his retirement party. He's no longer active at cardiology at the University of Washington. But I wanted to, when we went in for office visits, most of the time we didn't even, we went through the preliminaries of, well, what's going on now and everything like that. And this summer you should have another right side heart cath, or we're going to do this and that. I've always, as you know, had some kind of test of cardiology to see how the heart is doing and everything. And for the last couple of years, I've told him, I really, really want to thank you for all you've done for my health to allow me to be over 80 years old, suffering the pains of old age, because it's really a big deal now.
And, this is going to be an interesting question for me to ask you that I don't think I've ever asked any transplant patient before, because I this year just turned 70. How were your 70 to 80 years? How were they?
Okay, I'll tell you. In September of 2000, I was 58 and a half years old. A week from now, I'll be 84 years old. So I was 58 and a half years old when I had my heart transplant. And that was in September. And in March of 2001, plus or minus 6 months later, we were building our second house. Val and I were married 10 years by 2005. And in that first 10 years of our married life together, we built 3 houses from the ground up. Both her and I had previous experience in construction and building and everything like that, and it wasn't a big deal. So I remember very, very clearly that in March, April of 2001, I was helping the carpenters that I'd hired to frame up and build the house, and I was walking along the roof. I was walking along the walls on the exterior side of the house, helping them carry the trusses from one end of the house on one side to the other and holding them up straight while braces were put on them to hold them in place for finishing the roofing stuff. And I've thought about this recently. My 60s and my 70s were absolutely physically fantastic. I started in the spring of 2004, 3.5 years after my transplant, out here on the prairie where we are in central Washington. And I was the general contractor and was doing everything for building our house out here on the prairie. And I'm 62 years old at that time. I hired the foundation to be poured and put in because I didn't have any abilities to do something like that. And I'd hired, on recommendations of people, a guy and his 2 sons to frame up the house. And I was out here living in a trailer while they were framing up the house. They had sleeping bags and tents, and they camped out in our barn while I was sleeping in the trailer, and they framed the house. Do you know what that means by having a house framed? The 2 things that I did not do in building this house was the sheetrock on the inside of the house and the roofing, putting up the roofing. I did all the preliminary plumbing and electrical and everything else that it took to build a house when I was 62 and 63 years old. A couple years late, and what we've got out here too is plus or minus 30 acres of grassland and a lot of trees in one section. So there's plenty of different things to do with all of that. We had 2 horses, moved them into the barn, put up the stalls for them in the barn, built a little chicken coop and got a couple, 4, 5, 6 chickens. And enjoyed that so much that I ended up finally settling in on one bigger chicken coop, built 3 chicken coops while we were here, but got a garden going, a big garden, and excuse me, and started doing farmers markets. I grew vegetables, and we went to farmers markets in the central Washington area here, all over the place.
You know what you're telling me? Basically, what I'm hearing from you is I got to get on the stick. I've been fluffing. I need to get on the stick. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, and wouldn't say isolated, but the closest neighbor is right on the other side of the barn and the fence from us, but he's still 200 yards away. So we're out here with wide open spaces all around us. COVID was no problem for me because I told the doctor in 2020 when it was so bad, I had a visit with him in September, and that was the rampant part of COVID, that I said, there's more people in your waiting room out here than I see in a week or 2 weeks of time where I live. So I'm not overly concerned with COVID out there. And the wide open spaces, it's quiet. We very seldom hear a siren and everything. So I think it all contributed to just a very relaxed time. You know, I could do what I want when I wanted. That's the other thing about retirement. I was busier the first 5-6 years after I retired than I was when I worked, but I could pick what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
Now, how many years are you out with your heart transplant?
Last September of 2025 was 25 years.
Congratulations. Yeah, I'm going to be hitting 23 here in March.
Okay.
Just about a month away. Mm-hmm. So we're about the same length out. And things have been, as you're talking about building houses and everything else, I was going to say, well, how have you been? I think I already know the answer, but how have you been now after transplantation?
On top of the world. I just, you know, it's so normal. It's hard to believe that there's anything else. So, I feel good. Well, except for an aching left hip and an aching right shoulder, you know, a few things like that come with age. I don't have any problem. I have very little problem with any of the annual tests that I have to go through. I don't know which one or what it's going to be come this summer. My next cardiology visit is in March, and we'll talk at that time and see what they're going to do. But I'm not worried about it. Oh, the other thing is, when they told me about the transplant, what I found out was that it was an 18-year-old female from the Spokane area. Now, Spokane is on the eastern part of the state, real close to the Idaho border, which is 300 miles from Seattle. I don't know what caused her death. I've written to the parents a couple times and got no reply from them. So that tells you one thing. But my heart now is, 44 years old. So I think that makes a good difference. It was a pretty, I guess, my Val remembers more of that details and stuff than I do about it. But like they said, she was an athlete at high school over there, I guess, in basketball and track. And it was fairly close to the same size, which was unusual, as you discussed in your book. You know, that size is the number one thing. Mm-hmm. That being an athlete of a young girl is probably what made the heart size-wise so compatible with me. And as I said, bragging to my doctor that I haven't had any rejections and everything, it's the best working organ in my body right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, because you're out just a little bit more than me. And in 2015, because of all the meds, I needed a kidney transplant. Is your kidneys all working fine? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's never been an issue. Kidney, liver is always good. So I'm thankful every day that everything's as good as it is.
Well, awesome. Mm-hmm. So Before we let you go here, as we've pretty much covered your story, anything you'd like to say to the people out there in podcast land?
Well, I guess, trust your doctor. And I prayed during that pre-transplant time. And right now, every night before I go to bed, I thank the Lord for another good day, the strength and the good health I've had again today, and stuff like that. Do all you can do to lead a normal life despite what's going on.
Good words of advice. Now, I know we're going to talk next week to your wife, Val, and she has written a book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because of all that we went through in the fall of 2024, she came one day, 2025, said that she was kind of teary-eyed and had to do something. She'll clean up my story better when you talk to her. But said she got an idea in her head, and I'm going to write this book about all that we've gone through with your hospital and your heart transplant and the doctors and everything like that. And so that's what got her started on it, was the living through it as a patient's spouse, the ins and outs of all of that stuff, after having thought about it for quite a while, is that she decided that other people could benefit from what she had learned through all my times in and out of the hospital since the mid-90s.
And the name of that book is?
Surviving the Hospital. 6 Secrets Every Patient Should Know.
And like I said, we'll be talking with Val next week, and we'll learn more about the book. So looking forward to that. So we wish you all the best of luck. And Bill, I hope you have many more years left with that wonderful heart. And we thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Oh, sure. You bet. I hope I have many, many more years myself. Thank you. Yes, thank you for calling and asking me this.
Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us today on the Gift of Life podcast. Next week, make sure you join us for the Gift of Life as we talk with his wife. That's right, Val Barschaw will tell us all about her new book, Surviving the Hospital, 6 Secrets Every Patient Should Know. Again, that's coming up next week right here on the Gift of Life. And if you have a transplant story, we'd love to share it with our audience. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll get you on the show. Follow us on Facebook. Also, don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends, and we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Reminder, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, isn't just a medical story. It's a survival story filled with humor, hope, and heart. We also talk a little bit about my radio career, stand-up comedy, and some other crazy things that have happened in my lifetime. Get yours now on Amazon. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. And we want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.